We begin tonight with a developing story concerning C Street. For many years now, members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans, have lived at a lavish 6,000 square foot, 12-bedroom, 9-bathroom townhouse right near the Capitol. It's a building called C Street. Now, as we've talked about on this show before, C Street is run by a secretive religious group called the Family. The Family has recently denied having anything to do with this residence, but the property deed to C Street is signed by an employee of the Family, and the Family's tax forms show C Street to be an affiliated organization. So the Family's attempts to try to distance themselves from C Street have not worked, and frankly, they've been a little clumsy. That said, lots of people have been trying to distance themselves from C Street in the past year since a string of alleged and admitted C Street-related extramarital affairs have come to light. Mark Sanford said that he received counseling about his extramarital affair with a woman from Argentina while he was keeping that affair secret. John Ensign said he got counseling at C Street as well as help negotiating an attempted cash payout to his mistress while he was keeping that affair secret. And former Congressman Chip Pickering's wife says that C Street is where Chip Pickering actually carried out his alleged extramarital affair while that affair was secret as well. So C Street, because of all those sex scandals, got very famous very quickly for all the wrong reasons. It's particularly awkward, given all the waka chicka going on there. Particularly awkward was the fact that C Street was, for tax purposes, listed as a church. Earlier this month, as we reported, a group of Ohio pastors asked the IRS to strip C Street of its federal tax-exempt status, because although it does claim to be a church in the view of these pastors, there isn't a whole lot that's very churchy about it. Well, now, this same group of pastors has brought to light new information about C Street and the members of Congress who live there or have lived there. This new information raises the prospect of serious violations of congressional ethics rules and the prospect that members of Congress have violated tax laws to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars, potentially. This group of pastors know what they're talking about. The letter they sent today to the commissioner of the IRS is drafted by their attorney. Their attorney is the former director of the Exempt Organizations Division at the IRS. In other words, he's the man who used to be in charge at the IRS of groups getting tax-exempt status. Here's the issue they're raising in their new letter. Members of Congress who lived at C Street, this 12-bedroom, 9-bathroom, maid-serviced townhouse a stone's throw away from the Capitol building. These members of Congress were reportedly only paying $950 a month in rent. That was reported last year. In 2002, it had been reported that they were paying $600 a month, but again, as of last year, it's reported to be $950 a month. If you compare that rent to what it would cost to live basically anywhere else in that area with the same sort of amenities, it really looks like these congressmen were getting a huge discount on their rent. Remember, this is a furnished townhouse on Capitol Hill with housekeeping services and meal services available. Compare $950 a month at C Street to $4,000 a month at the Marriott ExecuStay in the same area, which offers roughly the same type of services, even if it's not as posh. Compare $950 a month that these members of Congress are paying at C Street to $4,500 a month at the Capitol Hill Suites nearby. Compare $6,000 a month at the Capitol Hill Liaison Hotel. If you want to ignore all the extra amenities and furnishings and housekeeping services that the C Street congressmen were enjoying there, if you wanted to just rent a one-bedroom apartment in that same area without all the bells and whistles, try $1,700 a month. So when you look at all these figures, surprise, surprise, right? Members of Congress getting a sweetheart deal, an obviously subsidized deal on their living arrangements. Here's the rub. If you or me or a member of Congress was paying that kind of way below market rate for their housing, you have to tell the IRS that. It's income. They call it imputed income. If you were, say, paying $1,000 a month to live somewhere, and the actual fair market value of that place was $2,000 a month, you'd have to report that $1,000 difference as taxable income when you filed your taxes. So if these members of Congress were paying $950 a month instead of a conservative estimate of what that housing was worth, which is probably $4,000 a month, that would mean these members of Congress were getting as income a rent subsidy of about $3,000 a month. $3,000 a month spread out over a year. That means they would have had about $36,000 of extra income to tell the IRS about and to pay taxes on. Did they? Members of Congress don't have to release their tax returns. But this group of pastors would like the IRS to find out. In their complaint, they write this, quote, if C Street is indeed charging a below-market rate, in effect subsidizing the rent for the members of Congress who live there, and the residents are not including its value in the taxable income, then the members may have significant unreported income tax liabilities. And there's more. Now, if it were you or I in this situation, if I were in this situation, or you were in this situation, anybody who's not a member of Congress, we might have a tax problem on our hands with this. And, you know, that's what Al Capone went to prison for. But because these are members of Congress, they have something else to worry about. They may also have a congressional ethics problem on their hands. Members of Congress have to declare any gift to them that's valued over $50. If this subsidized rent was given to them as a gift or a donation, they are required to declare it as such. Every year, members of Congress fill out these financial disclosure reports. And according to a review done by this pastors group, none of the current members of Congress who live at or have lived at C Street have ever declared that they received any sort of gift in the form of a rent subsidy, let alone, say, $36,000 a year in a gift in a form of a rent subsidy. Today, we contacted every current member of Congress we know of who either lives at C Street now or has reportedly lived there in the past. We contacted Senator Jim DeMint, Senator John Ensign, Senator Tom Coburn, Senator Sam Brownback. We contacted Congressman Zach Wamp, Congressman Bart Stupak, Congressman Mike Doyle, and Congressman Jerry Moran. We asked each of them whether they reported their subsidized rent, the subsidized rent they allegedly received, to the IRS, whether they would make their tax returns public, and whether any of this was declared as gifts on their financial disclosure reports. So far, 2 of these members of Congress have gotten back to us, Congressman Mike Doyle of Pennsylvania and Senator Tom Coburn of Oklahoma. I sincerely want to thank both of them for having their staff get back to us, and I really hope the rest of them will as well. Here's what Mr. Doyle told us today, quote, while I no longer live at C Street, I never received any subsidized rent there. My living arrangements then and now have always complied with House rules and regulations. When we asked how much Congressman Doyle paid in rent while he lived at C Street so we could assess the veracity of his statement that it wasn't subsidized, Mr. Doyle's office declined to comment. A spokesman for Senator Coburn also got back to us tonight telling us this, quote, he hasn't received subsidized rent. He pays more than $10,000 a year for a room and bathroom only. Just to be clear, if you do the $10,000 a year in rent breaks down to about $833 a month, which is obviously even less than the $950 a month figure that had been reported. We also contacted the IRS today to find out if they intend to look into these allegations. They, too, declined to comment. They told us they were not at liberty to discuss any individual's tax information. As I said before, this is a developing story. Really, really developing. Joining us now is the Reverend Eric Williams. Reverend Eric Williams is senior pastor at North Congregational United Church of Christ in Columbus, Ohio. He and 12 other pastors have filed this latest complaint with the IRS. Pastor Williams, thanks very much for joining us again.
Oh, glad to.
As I just mentioned, the IRS was pretty tight-lipped with us today when we spoke to them about these allegations. Has your group heard back from them at all, or do you expect to?
We did hear back after the initial complaint, and it was a standard letter saying they received our concerns and would look into it if it merited, and if we have any further concerns to forward those. And really that's what this second letter is, a supplement to our original complaint.
These allegations of potential tax violations, potential ethics violations are very serious charges. With the exception of Congressman Doyle and Senator Coburn, none of these current or former residents of C Street, at least to us, have yet come forward to try to clear their names. Have any of them tried to come to you to clear their names? Do you expect that they can or that they will?
I've had no contact from any of them, and quite frankly, I would be pleasantly surprised if they did reach out to us.
Your complaint makes a pretty detailed case, appears to be a pretty solid case, that these members of Congress are paying way below market value rent. Is the tax-exempt status of C Street as a purported church relevant to the way that you think these congressmen and senators may have been evading taxes here?
I think that goes right to the heart of it. Because this boarding house is purportedly a church, there's no opportunity to look at their finances. There's no obligation to do any reporting. Therefore, quite frankly, I don't know if the members of Congress even paid any rent at all. And the subsidy, was it a gift that was given? Was it imputed income? We don't know anything like that. All we can do is ask the questions and ask the IRS to compel us, C Street Center and the members of Congress to comply. We'd like to know. We would like to know.
When Congressman Doyle and Senator Coburn told us today that they didn't receive any subsidized rent, as you heard me describe, neither one of them willing to elaborate particularly on that claim. It may be that members of Congress were in the dark and thought that rent was super cheap in Washington and they didn't know they were getting a subsidy. Does that seem possible to you?